What's up, guys? When the tiering changes you see on your screen came into effect, many players voiced the opinion that if Raikou is going to drop from OU to BL, then Regice should follow suit, because like Raikou, its lack of high-level tournament usage was a reflection of its general metagame ineffectiveness. Now, I doubt even the most hardcore Regice for BL truther would deny that Regice is unquestionably better than Raikou in advance. However, that does not mean that Regice cannot be BL itself. I thought it would be a fun project to examine if Regice has truly lost its OU viability to the point where it can no longer be considered an OU Pokemon. Now, being a man of science, I know that a series of isolated experiments like this is not enough to make any conclusive statements. But I also think that the methodical, systematic approach I will take in this video to examining the subject can help us shed some more light on the topic. So the way we're going to examine Regice's viability is we're going to determine what its generally most useful set is, what kind of team it'll fit best on, then we'll play some games and see if it performs. I think it's a reasonable enough methodology. So, first, what set is Regice going to run? Luckily, we can already narrow it down to the offensive set, because defensively, it is entirely outclassed as a wall by Blissey. So, Regice is generally accepted to be the special attacking counterpart of Snorlax. It comes in on special attackers like Zapdos and Celebi and Gengar, dishes out some powerful special attacks, and it's got Boom to take down some tough walls. Mostly, that big tough wall is Blissey, the, unfalling special wall. So ideally, you get it to come in on Regice, and then you explode, and then your teammate Jirachi or Suicune or whatever has a grand time. So we have now assigned Regice the goal of Special Sponge, Special Attacker, Blissey Bait. With our team, we will try to get the most use out of its defensive role and abuse what it can do offensively, and see if it can do this consistently against a variety of teams, because if it's only good against one kind of team, it's probably not really worth using. So, this is the general accepted standard for offensive Regice. Ice Beam, duh. Thunderbolt is almost as duh, because it has the legendary Bolt Beam coverage, and you get the full base power of Thunderbolt rather than having to resort to Hidden Power Electric or something. So you get a great hit on water types, barring Swampert. And thus you can save your Hidden Power Fire for later. Explosion, pretty mandatory too. It's the whole Blissey Bait thing. So the last move is where it gets tricky. Thunder Wave is the generally accepted standard for its reliability in messing with common switch-ins like Tyranitar, Metagross, Jirachi. Even slowing down something like Suicune can be invaluable. So, unfortunately, Regice has immense issues against Forretress, so some players like running Hidden Power Fire to bait it in. It also has the benefit of hitting Metagross and Jirachi quite hard. Some players also like to use Thunder, because that extra hit is really notable against things like Suicune and Skarmory, especially Skarmory. And the paralysis rate means that you can fire off your electric attack while still potentially nabbing paralysis on that Tyranitar or Metagross switch. So this is a pretty all-encompassing set. So let's examine if it can't do anything else. So the general other move is you might consider is Superpower, which Regice is uniquely endowed with, and Focus Punch if you want to go that route, because, hey, safer hit on Blissey if it comes down to it, and it smacks T-Tar pretty well. Smacks Snorlax really nicely too, because Blissey's not the only special sponge out there. Snorlax is used on more offensive teams. This can give it some extra muscle. So, the first three are pretty inarguable. So, if not Thunderbolt, then Thunder, and vice versa. Thunder is generally not something you want to rely on consistently, so let's make it T-Bolt. Thundering and missing against Suicune would just be awful. So generally, if you're looking to get paralysis with Regice, you want to go Thunder Wave, and it's a good Thunder Wave user because ground types don't want to come anywhere near a stab Ice Beam, with the exception of Swampert, but we'll get there. So Hidden Power Fire. It chunks Metagross and Jirachi decently, but it's a tough move to use. When you've got your Regice in on Zapdos, and they've got Tyranitar, Metagross, and Snorlax, they can easily go to any of the three, and you can't consistently read which one they're going to go into. So, do you really want to use Hidden Power Fire as they go to Tyranitar? Because if Snorlax comes in, you can threaten the explosion, but they can still go to Metagross, especially if you're switching as T-Tar. So, to make that clear, you have Regice versus Zapdos. They go to Snorlax on your HP Fire. They can and if your Snorlax counter is Tyranitar, they can easily go to Metagross. So if you exploded your Regice on Metagross, which is useless. And if you go to your Metagross, or if you go to your Snorlax counter in T-Tar, then they will have a good matchup against it with Metagross. So win-win. So you don't really want to allow for that. Thunder Wave would be the ideal move. Even paralyzing something slow like Snorlax can be huge. If it paralyzes one of your guys with Body Slam, you'll still be faster. Full paralysis is always useful. So, let's be real. Hidden Power Fire is only for Fortress. And Fortress is... well, I'll get a little bit of ahead of myself and say Fortress is usually not a huge issue for the kinds of offensive teams that Regice works its way on. If it's a mixed offense team and Regice is acting kind of like a Snorlax, then you'll have lots of ways to come in and threaten it. The problem is Fortress being paired with Blissey, because if Fortress is stopping Regice from ever getting to Blissey, then you will not be able to explode on it. And that's actually going to be a key theme of squeezing use out of Regice, getting past its other non-Blissey switch-ins. So, Hidden Power Fire is really just for Fortress though. So, we might come back to it, but we would generally want a better all-purpose move. So, if you can handle Fortress some other way, maybe if you face Fortress and Blissey, then you have to have a different plan. So we'll come back to this. But generally we'll say Thunder Wave or Superpower. Thunder Wave is just generally useful against nearly everything. So we'll go with the generally accepted set. It's hard to go wrong with this one. Superpower also seems nice, but we can come back to that just like we can with Hidden Power Fire. So we have made some deductions about Regice's moveset. Let's look at those stats. Hey, this is a pretty nice special attack stat. Unfortunately, it's also a pretty miserable attack stat. So you are not outgoing Blissey anytime soon with even with Explosion, and its effective 500 base power. But we'll get to that. So a problem I've encountered when using Regice in the past is being messed with by Swampert too easily. It sounds weird, but it comes in on Thunderbolt and Thunder Wave and just earthquakes you down, and Ice Beam's not leaving a sizable dent, and you don't really care about removing Swampert if you've got a bunch of special attackers, even mixed attackers. Sure, it might be good if you've got a DD Tar, but, generally you shouldn't be getting messed with by Swampert. So, we have to make it so... wouldn't it be ideal if Regice was not as threatened by Swampert? Check out the calcs. Swampert is versus standard Mixpert. Then Ice Beam is gonna do Quiet, Max, Special Attack. Then that's a pretty meaty attack. But look at Earthquake. Oh, that's 0 bulk. But still, look at Earthquake. That's a 3 KO in Sand. And you're generally going to be getting the worst of that exchange, especially because it can protect, and you're not really getting anything out of, and you can't really punish it for protecting, you know? So, it would be ideal if we could run a fast set that could deal with Pert. But then which stat do I drop? So I'm going to propose that we decide, screw HP, we're going to go minus defense. And here's why. So, one of the reasons Snorlax is such a great all-purpose self-destructing tank is because his only weaknesses to the relatively rare fighting, and he's so bulky he can generally stomach one with that massive HP stat. Whereas Regice has a lot of really nasty weaknesses. Rock, Steel, meaning Meteor Mash, and Fire is not so bad because it's a special tank, but generally it'll get worn down. Plus, even with max HP investment, then it's going to be put in range of things like Dugtrio really quickly. If it takes too many attacks. With Regice, you don't want it taking too many attacks. You want it to get in, and you want it to do its damage and get out, because otherwise they might limit what you can do with Regice. You know, if you switch in a half-health Regice to check Zapdos and Explode, and they go to Dugtrio, then boom, you did nothing with Regice. You had to get out on that front foot. You had to take initiative. So we're gonna want to put less of a focus on Regice taking so many hits, especially given how it ends up in range for them anyway. And now that we're doing that, we can give it some speed. And taking from special attack is absolutely out of the question. I mean, 328 is nice, for sure, but it already struggles to scratch, you know, Skarmories and T-Tars and Swamperts and Suicunes and Metagross and even like Calm Mind Celebi. So it's, I mean, a few EVs here and there might not hurt, but for now we're going to focus on Regice dishing out as much pain as possible because it's not going to be excelling much in many other places. So let's just max out the speed stat. You might say, hey, you know, get some attack. But, so Swampert generally, so minus speed Swampert, falls is, no, this is the number from here to here, and then it can have a bunch of speed. It can go up to Blissey speed, then that Blissey minus speed Mixtar, neutral T-Tar, Whirl minus speed Mixtar with EVs, minus speed Metagross. So by going here, then you can outspeed quite a lot of stuff, and being faster than those things I just mentioned, those are game changers. Now, this might be the point where you say, look, BKC, you've given it its good speed benchmark, but Regice needs to take hits. Give it the remainder in HP. And I'm going to say no. That's because it's going to take Zapdos for our purposes just as well, with max HP or without. I mean, look, 25 to 29 in Sand, that's a lot already. And, you know, an extra 5%, I mean, sure, you get 3 KO'd maybe now, so maybe some HP might be nice to deal with Mata Zapdos, but I'm definitely not just going to mindlessly chuck it into HP, especially when Regice is meant to be played fast. That means getting it in, hitting hard, and blowing up before you run the risk of not accomplishing anything with it. So I also want to get as much speed as I can. I'm not just going to blindly max speed, but I want as much speed as I can so that I can maximize the amount of one-on-ones I can create so that I can actually do something. So you might say, look, you've got T-Wave. You'll be fine in regards to speed. You can't T-Wave everything. If I can double switch my Regice into a Metagross and actually be faster and T-bolt it into, let's say, Dugtrio range, that's potentially game-changing. And the opposite is Regice dies horribly to Metagross, Dugtrio does not kill it since it took no prior damage, and what? Because you wanted some bulk. Some generally arbitrary bulk, I should say. I am not one of those guys who says max speed on everything no matter what. But the bulk's got to be doing something specific. So in this case, that specific bulk could be tanking Zapdos a couple times. I'm also going to mention for our team later that we are going to want to keep spikes off the field, because that's when Regice starts really feeling cramped. When on top of not having recovery and having leftovers neutered in sand, it starts taking spikes before it even takes a hit. That's nasty. So we'll still want to play it fast. I mean, playing fast will also help with that, since good fast teams can punish spikes, can accomplish something in the face of spikes. So that shouldn't be too difficult, but it is an important thing I want to mention. Anyway, back to Regice's speed. So we've already hit our Mixpert, our defensive Mixpert, our Blissey, or most Blissey, our some variants of T-Tar and Metagross. What else can we get? What about the guys that try to aim for Skarmory? Oh, look at that. We just passed minus speed Claydol. So that's really good. That's something that can come into play. Hey, look, I can prevent Claydol from EQing me into range of whatever attack. I can prevent Claydol from exploding on me. That's pretty valuable. So anyway, we're looking for Skarm territory now. So we're Skarm, and then we're getting to the things that are trying to beat Skarm. So our Mixtars, or like mid-range Mixtars, our Mixgrosses, our Fire Blast Blissies. This is a weird speed creep game, but it's worth investing in at least somewhat. So we're gonna hit Skarm, and just for the sake of max speed, what is gonna sit between this mid-range 180s speed and 199? Not a lot really in the 190s area besides Skarm and T-Tar that are creeping like hell on each other. The one thing that would sit at 198 is Milotic, and Milotic might be worth investing for, because Milotic is actually going to shrug off Regice's Thunderbolts like nothing. But since Explosion ends the turn, then you could potentially mess with Milotic a lot, and that could be valuable. Like, for example, Regice is very likely to fit on a mixed offense, and those teams generally hate dealing with Milotic. So if you can Thunderbolt and then Explode, you'll have shaved a ton of HP off Milotic, and then it can no longer counter Mixments or Mixtar. However, there are some reasons to not go all the way. One, if you don't really care about Milotic, like if you welcome the sight of it as an opportunity for your offensive Calm Mind Celebi to come in and cause havoc, then, why bother? Especially because those EVs might be put to better use. I mean, I already went over how, we're not going to sweat the Zapdos thing, but some HP might be good. Now you might be saying, hey, why wouldn't you put some in attack? Don't you want to actually kill Blissey? And that's also another fair point. Now, here's the thing. You're never actually going to kill Blissey from full health anyway with Regice Explosion. It just requires too many EVs, and we want it to be generally useful, so we're giving it a lot of speed. However, we can leave it in range of things, so that'll be another calc thing. However, since I think generally to get the most use out of Regice, then we're gonna have to make it fast. Like, I mean, getting outsped by Skarmory, or at least fully bulky Skarmory, is just depressing. So, maybe a little bit, but Regice generally functions best with Dugtrio. It's most consistent there. And if you boom on Blissey and Dugtrio follows up, perfect. It's never escaping that. And Dugtrio is also good because it traps several other Pokemon that might get in the way of Regice getting to Blissey, mainly T-Tar and Metagross. It can also help Regice in the event that it faces Jirachi as a special wall, because against Jirachi you're not going to do anything. You'll T-Wave it, you'll definitely be happy you have T-Wave there rather than hoping for that 27% Thunder Paralysis just to get something going. But yeah, so it's very likely we wind up using Dugtrio, and the attack EVs will be somewhat useless. And in that case, then the speed EVs on might be even better, because you could explode on Milotic and then finish it off with Dugtrio, so it doesn't come back to heal up on something like Swampert. Bulky Swampert, that is. We could also be using an offensive Swampert on this team to keep up with the vein of fast, hard-hitting offense to maximize Regice's capabilities, you know, setting the tempo and abusing what Regice creates and whatnot. Anyway, so Milotic only needs 8 EVs to make it useless, though, which is another reason that makes me think, maybe not. So maybe we go down to Scarm, or, you know, a Scarm approximation to the point where if it's going to be faster, then it's going to be it's not going to be protecting its way out of KO range for many things that aren't Dugtrio anymore. So I think generally around here is going to be a good benchmark, and we can get some Zapdos EVs going. So this is a pretty decent chance to 3 KO in Sand, since it doesn't have leftovers. That's the same as it would be in Sand. So, and giving it special defense EVs doesn't do anything, as you can see. So HP is generally going to be better. Now Regice is generally going to live or die against a physical attack regardless, but or be 2 KO'd rather. But generally, you know, you can split hairs, but you'll want to play it fast and aggressive to the point where you shouldn't even have to worry about that. You should be taking the initiative with Regice to the point where they're responding to your attacks. You're not worrying about, oh, I have to keep this out of range of Swampert Earthquake. So 12, you know, this is going to be somewhat arbitrary, but look at how much better this is already. So, and we'll still have EVs to spare after this, and we can get some more in speed. Maybe we can even get some in attack for general boom power and helping Dugtrio finish the job against things like Snorlax. So, yeah, you know what? We'll definitely do this. So 24. Now, this does not mean you can switch it into 4 Zapdos T-Bolts in Sand, because even if you live 4, then you'll die to Sand on the 4th one. But it's a generally good benchmark, and we're not doing too many better things with the EVs, so we can afford it. So I think we're going to call the Scarm benchmark. Actually, you know what? Around here, I think, is generally a safe bet. That's already more EVs than I have in mind. Oh, but that's a really good benchmark. Maybe around here? And, you know, that's going to be slower than some Taunt T-Tars. Generally, because Taunt T-Tar goes this much speed, Dugtrio bulk, and then attack to actually KO bulkless Dugtrio with Earthquake. So then getting the jump on that is definitely fair. And we went from this to, I mean, it's only a %, but I think since we can afford it, then that's not too bad. You know what? Let's even get cheeky. Can we go to 44 effectively? You know what? Let's do it. Alright, cool. So we have determined our Regice set. So the 2 options that really stand out in terms of teams with Regice are things like mixed offense, where Regice would take the place of what would normally be a Snorlax, and ideally that you blow up annoying things like Blissey. Zapdos gets you have more pressure on the physical walls, Skarmory and Swampert, and you tie in with the mix theme, and if you can land one on Blissey, Zapdos gets happy. Maybe have a Suicune and Jirachi instead of Swampert and Metagross. I don't actually recommend this team at all, not just because of the weaknesses I'm about to mention that come with using Regice on this playstyle, but with it's the rock weakness. You know, just DD-Tar utterly shreds this, and I'm not too confident against Arrow with it either. But you get the idea that, you know, you could have a special sweeper here. You know, maybe this is still Swampert. So the offensive one, or Salak. So if you're not in the loop, then the only offensive Swampert is not Salak anymore. It is also 4 attacks lefties variant with Focus Punch, and it's fast, and it uses its natural bulk to still check things, but it blows past Scarm and isn't walled by Blissey anymore. Okay. Does hate Milotic, however. Anyway, so the reason I don't like this is because this is always one bad turn from Blissey healing up, and suddenly all the work with Regice, it's gone. It's not coming back. So, what I think the most important thing is Dugtrio. Dugtrio will make Regice consistent at least a little bit, because it's going to make its KOs stick, or the damage it does stick because of how it finishes things off. So Dugtrio is definitely step one. Another step is Tyranitar. Now Tyranitar is not on your typical special offense, Suicune, Celebi, Jirachi, and then your Boom Lures. Like the traditional M-Dragon team is, which is a fine team, but it's Suicune, Celebi, Jirachi, so you got your 3 Calm Miners alongside the Boom Regice Dugtrio combo, and then you've got Gengar, so that's yet another Boom on Special Wall plus Dugtrio target, so synergy's great, but I think in this current metagame, we're not going to rely on the opponent bringing Tyranitar's sand for us. We must abuse the sand ourselves. So, for example, with Regice Ice Beaming Snorlax, if there's no sand in the picture, it's going to shrug that Ice Beam off. If there is sand in the picture, then look at the noticeable difference. Also, my R key is broken, in case you're wondering why I'm struggling to type certain words. That's Thick Fat. Thick Fat Snorlax is bad. Do not use it. It's terrible. Always use immunity. Why is it still... Dude, there you go. Okay, yeah, see, that sticks in sand. Obviously, it will have some bulk, but, that's a solid 4-hit KO, and outside of sand, you're not getting much. You'll have to blow up Regice prematurely. You'll have to, hang back onto T-Tar too many times, whereas here, go all in on that Snorlax. Dugtrio will finish the job. You can blow it up quickly since it's not stacking leftovers and, healing off your Ice Beams and potentially not preventing you from getting anywhere with it. So, just out of curiosity, I want to calc Explosion versus, let's say, 120 lax. That's generally accurate. Yeah, see, so you're not doing a ton, so it's important. I mean, 40 Vs goes a long way. So maybe we'll just stick it in there for the nice odd number to be safe against passive damage. So you know what, I think that's fair. Actually, you know what? That's never going to come into play. We'll never really know that it's coming into play. Where's the HP? We'll try to squeeze as much out of Regice there as we can. So I think this is fair. We'll stick with the original thing. So here's our plan. We've got Regice to come in on things like Zapdos and clear the path for our special attackers by baiting in special walls. And alongside Dugtrio. And we've got Tyranitar to make these twos hit stick. We're going to be picking off the metagame with these guys, and Tyranitar's sand is going to help us do it against annoying guys like Blissey and Snorlax and Suicune. So we've got the right Regice set. So now, here is the 3 I'm envisioning just off the top of my head. We might change this. So Suicune, Celebi, Jirachi, and I realize this is very similar to M-Dragon's team. So, before I get into weaknesses this particular lineup might have, I want to focus on the synergy. So, Suicune is just generally your first of all, these guys, good synergy, good start, but you have to start checking things now. I mean, physical attackers are just death. So, you've got a good assortment of checks to stuff with these 3. Celebi is going to handle other waters with Aplomb. Suicune generally tanks physical stuff. Obviously, all 3 of these are major threats, with special walls being zeroed in on. And they provide resistances. For example, Jirachi's normal and flying resists are great against Choice Banders. So Celebi is back up against something like Zapdos. You've also got some cool synergy here with Celebi baiting in Dugtrio. Then my Dug kills their Dug. And T-Tar and Jirachi live happily ever after. Celebi is nice because it means Gengar's Will-O-Wisp is not going to be wearing us down. We don't have to run Lumberries. Not that Gengar gets too much opportunity against this team, which is also good. But when it does, Celebi's Natural Cure helps minimize the mark it leaves. So I like the synergy of these. A few issues this team might have. Flygon. Flygon's definitely not a fun customer to face. Gets some unfortunate opportunities, and we don't really have a great switch into its Earthquake HP bug combo at all. So that might be an issue. We might have to stick Ice Punch on Celebi, or on Jirachi, which is good. You know, generally it also doesn't get a ton of opportunity depending on our T-Tar set. And if it's coming in after a Dugtrio kill, it's coming in after Dugtrio's removed something, so we'll take the hit. Aerodactyl might also get messy, but yeah, so generally this is a good start. So, yeah, T-Tar's set can kind of be whatever almost. Honestly, I'm kind of tempted to make this a Swampert just for the extra physically defensive security, since I feel Suicune. I just think it'll help against not being worn down by sand will be helpful against Flygon and Arrow, and it'll still check Salamence and T-Tar. Actually gives us a better immediate switch to T-Tar, which is big because we can't just go switching Dugtrio into it. You know, it'll heal it off. So yeah, we're gonna make this a Swampert. So we're gonna make it offensive, but with bulk. So we want it to be stinging that Scarm as much as possible. This is generally my go-to. Hydro, we're gonna hit the same speed benchmark as Regice. If you were wondering about that offensive Swampert, this is an example of it. So, you know, tough to go wrong. I mean, you can start going creep on stuff like this, but this is generally solid. So, you know, plenty of defense. We're gonna plop it in defense just to be safe as possible. We'll just do a quick calc of Ments against it to see what's most efficient. This is supposed to be an approximation or a representation of what the ideal, or not ideal, but of an effective team, what it would be. But I just can't help myself. I love optimizing shit. So we go down there, 64.5. Whoops, that was too much. Sensitive ass mouse. All right, 124. Down 8. Shit, dude, stop. Thank God for this background music. 1, 2, 4.5. Whoops. You know what? I think the least nonsensical approach is... Oh, actually no. 8-1-16 was better by upper, you know, barely, but it was. Okay, cool. So now we're gonna fill in the rest. I think this is a fair beginning. We've got a lot of good synergy here. It's not ideal, but actually the calc I should be more concerned about is Flygon Earthquake. Choice Band Flygon's luckily not too big right now. You know what I would really love to fit in here? I would love to fit in a Zapdos. I think it would be amazing. Unfortunately, I just don't think we can without giving up too much. It's just, yeah, you know, Jirachi's got the important flying resist and sweeping potential, but yeah, that ground immunity and the speed would be really nice. It's almost like Celebi, but then you lose the awesome Dug synergy. You know, we can give both a try. Celebi baton passing Calm Minds is nice, but I think, you know, the extra coverage on Salamence is probably better given. Speaking of men's coverage, since we are specifically luring in and messing up Snorlax and Blissey, I'm going to use this awesome Jirachi set, which should cover our woes. I'm probably going to miss Ice Punch against, or Psychic against Moltres and Gengar. Those are big ones. Suicune definitely helps against those, but no, ideally Celebi will lure it in. So we've got this. We're going to outspeed bulky Gengar. And, you know, rest in bulk because it's good. You know, not having HP Grass on Jirachi just sucks. You know, losing to Swampert is unacceptable. I would love Ice Punch T-Bolt, but I just don't think it can be afforded, and Fire Punch is too big for Metagross, other Jirachi, Magneton. You know, getting walled by Magneton sucks, so we're going to go with this set because it's generally awesome. So now for just general sweeping threat, I'm going to propose Dragon Dance T-Tar, just because it abuses Doug being down. And I'll go with DDHP Grass just because it helps rip a hole in the biggest amount of teams. So, being so brutally Doug weak won't be bad if I use Celebi well early game. Now this team is not as fully thought out as I'd like in terms of lead synergies and stuff, but like I said, it's supposed to be an approximation, and using it in game will give us an idea of if Regice can perform. And I'm going a little overboard with how much thought I'm putting into this, but you know what the hell. So let's do this much. HP Grass, yep, that's fine. So you probably want a little more, so I'm going to cheat a little bit and give it that extra punch for Swampert. Should I go above Gengar and Starmie? Actually, I'm gonna beat Endeavorpert as well. So, what the hell? And I'm gonna, you know, not even mess around with it. So, I'm gonna go Hasty here on this team. I think it's more important. So I'm gonna do that. That should be fine. All right, we are ready to test. So the testing portion, or so the building portion is over. Oh, I have to select my lead. I don't really have great leads. So I'll just do a quick examination. I don't want to get baton passed on by Zapdos early on, because this team doesn't have great defensive answers to stuff. I don't want to switch out of Metagross either, so Celebi seems like a good lead. It does. I can potentially remove a lot of stuff early on. Yeah, so the one flaw in this team that Regice is not giving me that I really wish I could have and would prefer with something like a Gengar would be that ground immunity. I'm really missing against Flygon and even playing around Aerodactyl. I mean, I could go with a more defensive Swampert set, and I just might. That's the last consideration I will make for this team. It would also give me more confidence in switching into Metagross and not having to be really healthy. Yep, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to go with a bulky Pert. So, team building fun. Yeah, I'm just going to no-nonsense this. I generally don't really love Hydro on bulky Pert, so I'm going to go with something fun in Endeavor, just because it's generally solid to have. So, yeah, this team definitely isn't perfect. I'm gonna go with some just some general bulk for Zapdos and Starmie to help out, and I will finish this set off with. I'm suddenly not sure about Endeavor, but you know what, I am, because it's good with Dugtrio. It definitely is. One of my other teams has taught me that. Okay, so we're gonna roll with this. Now with my defensive Swampert, I feel more confident switching out of Metagross, but I don't want it getting boomed on immediately, because then I would be very open to Salamence. So I'm gonna stick with my Celebi lead just to get the advantage versus the right things. So, yep, I think this is fine. Matter of fact, I'm gonna give it some more Spadef just to be safer versus stuff. And I think 64 will generally do the trick. That's a good Heracross benchmark. Alright, and we will now get into testing. Alright, I got my friend Xcal to help me out with some demonstrations against specific teams, so I'm not going to play like it, but this is a TSS team, or Toxic Sand Spikes. Generally the standard for defensive stuff. So, Celebi versus Zapdos. This is pretty clear. The playing is going to be straightforward. It's more about Zapdos posing a threat. So, with Celebi, I know that if he has a Blissey, he's probably going to go to it after Toxicking my Celebi, because he can't just go to Scarm and, you know, take a ton from Psychic and HP Fire, or a +2 HP Fire, and he risks Baton Pass, but that's what he gets for Toxicking Celebi. Anyway, this isn't supposed to be that, so I assume, you know, Psychic would be nice, but not necessary given my team. Oh shit, I forgot Protect on Swampert. Anyway, so I'll play it safe and go for Psychic. There's the Blissey. So, my switch into Blissey is not great, since Regice generally depends on it, so that might be a sign that this team wants Baton Pass as another weapon against Blissey. However, this is not a knock against Regice, since Gengar would not be able to do this either. So it's really a question of Gengar versus Regice at this point. So good to know that Baton Pass Celebi is the best as always. So I'm going to go to T-Tar. I'm going to... Zapdos, Blissey, Dugtrio is a thing, so I'm going to keep it away for now. And Scarm or Swampert are coming in, unfortunately. Another thing Zapdos would be really nice for, Baton passing out of Scarmpert and forcing in Blissey and having great synergy with Dugtrio. So that's another thing Regice's impact is being felt more in the team builder here, I feel, than the unique stuff Gengar and Zapdos provide to these teams. That said, the extra specially defensive security against stuff like Zapdos and Starmie is very nice. So Skarmory is... because I'm looking like mixed or choice band. So if there's going to be a Doug here, he's giving up on Gengar or Spikes. So here's the problem with the team that will... and so yeah, Regice's problem here is the team builder factor for sure. So going right to Dugtrio would be foolish. So I'm going to go to Jirachi. That doesn't feel smart either. You know, I'm just going to go to Celebi, because Swampert is also a likely initial switch. And I'm just going to Calm Mind up. Since Swampert is... I mean, hey, that's fine. But he can Protect. See, this is why it's tough. These kinds of teams, you want to be consistent with them, but it's tough when you get faced with turns like this, where he could Protect or he could go to Blissey, and making the wrong move, i.e. going to Dugtrio on Swampert, would not be fun. So I would also probably want a bulkier Dugtrio on this team that can survive a hit from Blissey if, you know, I get in on a double switch. That's generally good with Zapdos, which is important for denying early spikes and getting it in. But so what this is really teaching us is we really want to use Zapdos. And it's not that Regice is bad. I mean, against an offensive team, it's going to be pretty good. But Zapdos is also good against those teams and doesn't kill you so much this way. So see, there's the Protect, but luckily that means we can get Dugtrio in now on the Blissey or the T-Tar. That's a good move, since he knows Giga Draining, so that helps a lot. And I went for that quite quickly because I can still blow it up and threaten. And here's the thing, so Dugtrio is possible, and honestly, that might have been a little hasty, but I don't really have great options, because if I go to Swampert, then I'm just letting him go to Scarm, and, you know, I don't have the options to threaten Scarm immediately. So, and fitting Zapdos on this team is really difficult. So, you know, it's at this point where you start having to say things like, well, I hope he doesn't have Dugtrio, which he very well could. Zapdos, Blissey, Pert, T-Tar, Gengar, Doug is quite a popular team. It's not that team has banned Tar, though, and it generally really needs it. So it's a safe assumption, somewhat safe assumption that it's not Doug, but still not looking in great shape here. So see how that, you know, if I switch out of Pert, I switch into Pert, I force Scarm in, and there's nothing I can go to stop that Scarm. So we're going to chalk this one up as not a good matchup, and Regice is preventing Pokemon that could be more impactful here. coming in, from being used. You know, Zapdos would be an amazing tool here. So, you know, something's got to give. So we're going to call this one. So we're back in the team builder where we identified Regice's problems to be. So the question was, did we limit ourselves too much by going in on the all special sweeper angle? And I think, you know what, maybe it's Zapdos over Celebi that we need. Because Celebi definitely is a playmaker, but so is Zapdos. It's, you know, with Baton Pass, it has, you know, it gets dug in beautifully. And, you know, it gives us that ground immunity we really want. It lets us run offensive Swampert more safely. And, you know, wouldn't it be lovely to run Zapdos, Baton Pass Celebi, Baton Pass Zapdos, Baton Pass Celebi, and all these other guys. But it would have to mean, you know, no Jirachi. And, you know, then, you know, you're starting to get Dugtrio issues. So I'm going to switch to the Dug spread I use. So for not being too KO by Blissey. So I think Zapdos is almost a necessary Pokemon at this point, because as soon as you don't have Zapdos here, you cannot threaten Skarmory at all. I mean, you can have Taunt T-Tar until your eyes bleed, but it's just not enough, you know, with Dugtrio and whatnot. It's tough. So what we're learning is that Regice, I mean, what it does, I think, is nice as hell. Like, if I was able to get it in that game, then it would have been great. The problem is, against TSS, the team that it's supposed to lure Blissey in on, what's it coming in on? Zapdos? How am I ever forcing in his Zapdos? Or his Gengar with these Pokemon? It's all about the revolving door of physical walls that Regice doesn't threaten enough. So I've got to make the change to Zapdos, and other changes. This is making me worse against Dugtrio. So Regice is really, really restricting me at this point. So I'm just gonna, and I mean, it's gonna be nice against offense, but you know, I'm seeing the issue now. It's, you know, for the millionth time, it's not about eating, it's not about what Regice is good at, it's about the stuff that it leaves you open with in your team. So for this last slot, I'm just going to use, I'll come back to this. Anyway, so, you know, so what, accept a Dugtrio weakness? Oh, that's awful. That's an awful thing, especially when you're kind of forced to use the bulky Dugtrio to have any hope of consistently killing Blissey. And I'm just thinking at this point, why am I using Regice? So, I mean, it's kind of a quick conclusion to reach. Maybe T-Tar is just not doing enough for me, but then I just straight up can't switch into Blissey. So, yeah, this kind of thing might be just, you can't do enough with it. I mean, against offense, I have little doubt that Regice will switch into Zapdos and T-Wave some shit and be annoying and generally be effective. But, you know, against the big style, like, if you can't beat standard TSS, then your team is not viable. It is not a team, like, I already think that, you know, picking and choosing what you're going to be weak to in advance is unnecessary and dumb, but, you know, if there was ever a style to explicitly never lose to because you will get creamed no matter what, it's this one. So, for this kind of team, I think we're going to have to label it a failure, and that Regice just can't viably work on it unless you're okay with being weak to stuff. You know, you're going to be weak to the Skarmory thing I just mentioned, which is horrible. You know, not being able to threaten Skarm, or you're going to be weak to Dug, or you're going to be weak to physical stuff. I mean, you just can't fit everything, because you need the T-Tar, I think. I really feel you do. Because otherwise, you're relying on... And what happens, even if they bring T-Tar, what happens in that early game where they lead Zapdos, and they have Snorlax to check all your stuff, and they're not bringing their own sand up, so, and you don't have the option to, and what else are you going to switch into Snorlax in the first place? Metagross? I mean, just use T-Tar at that point. What's Metagross doing for you? I don't think it fits. I mean, the extra explosion is certainly nice, but it's tough, man. So I gotta say, the special offense with Dugtrio thing, the special sand offense with Dugtrio thing, I just don't think Regice can fit. I think other Pokemon, like one of my favorite teams, is this 6, but with Gengar over Regice, and I think what Gengar offers in terms of speed is just so much nicer. And yeah, that team also struggles with what's it called? Dugtrio, but on the other hand, Gengar is another Pokemon immune to ground. It's fast. It can make things happen more so that I can get out on the front foot. So I don't know. Maybe this is okay, but I just feel like this Dugtrio weakness is so glaring. It's brutal, and especially because it picks off Regice. And I know we went over the whole thing about how you got to get out in front, but I feel like this is hinging too much on Regice being able to do that without the rest of the Pokemon being able to do so themselves, because otherwise this is just Doug City. Because at this point your options for abusing a locked Doug is just Zapdos. Not that Zapdos isn't great for doing that, but I'm not feeling great about it. You know, Gengar's Will-O-Wisp and explosion and speed and I don't know. You know what? We're going to give it a shot. I'm just gonna toss Toxic. Did he challenge me? I feel like this is gonna be worse because Gengar also gives security against DD Ments. So yeah, I think unfortunately I am going to have to label this style a failure. Not that my favorite team doesn't have a Dugtrio weak. It's also got a different T-Tar set. I'm not using DD, but oh man, the Will-O-Wisp gets worse, and I mean at this point I would rather just use Celebi here. Celebi would be fantastic, and that's another good team I really like. You know, Baton Pass into the bulky Dugtrio, Calm Mind passing to everything, and it's just dirty. So yeah, I can't say Regice is good here, so we're gonna try something else. So I stepped away for a second, and I had some realizations. First off, the version with Gengar here instead of the Regice, that works because Gengar is an offensive threat alongside Dugtrio rather than just being support like Regice is. It's also a great backup check to threats, so that kind of helps again, even against things like Heracross, as well as Ments. And the speed is just nice. So, but what I realized with this is that I'm going to be shakier versus Arrow for sure. But if I can deny the spikes, then, or at least punish them for going up, then Suicune can be the offensive pressure I need. And I've got 4 legendaries on this team now. Anyway, so yeah, so here we've got Suicune. For Zapdos, I'm gonna Thunder Wave just so that Suicune has, a clear path to the late game. Here I'm gonna change the T-Tar to be, just because I don't want Dugtrio coming in for completely free, because I'm still not really abusing it as much as I'd like to. But it's the fact that Suicune can turn things around better than most other things. So I'm kind of thinking Choice Band T-Tar here just to cause as much damage as it can. The thing is, if I just, between choosing the right move for Scarm and Purr and just doing nothing and not even taking out the right wall before I go down to Doug, it's nasty. That's why Celebi was so nice on this team, and it's just making me think, dude, just run Celebi. And I don't think that's a bad conclusion to come to. Now, I know Triangles has used a lot of Regice to success on his teams, but I mean, I looked at the sample teams for the Ruins of Alfred. There's not a single Regice here, and I think that's somewhat telling. So the only other team I consider that I will also use is M-Dragon's old Sandless Calm Mind spam one. That makes up for not having Sand by having Will-O-Wisp Gengar. I still think it's flimsy. That's talk about a team that really relies on being out in front against things like Snorlax, and I don't know. Yeah, it also has a bold Wish Calm Mind Jirachi, which helps against that, and Arrow. But it's risky business. So, but we'll give that one a shot. We'll also give this a shot, and then we will make our, rather sweeping conclusion. We'll also give a mixed team a shot. Although I still feel that's not going to be doing so well. So we're just going to make this a... Actually, you know what? We're going to make this a mixed tar. And if there's a Will-O-Wisp Gengar, or a sub-tar, and if there's a Will-O-Wisp Gengar, then I... you know... You just kind of... Luckily, it does not get chances to come in for free until after a Doug KO, so... yeah, so this is a good T-Tar set that I like. And since it is bad in a one-on-one against Doug, you just do that, and then you do that, and everything is gravy. So, yeah, this is a good T-Tar. And the last move on this, you don't want to be losing to Milotic, so I'm going to do something kind of weird. I'm not going to use the 101 HP sub. I'm going to just use sub to block things like Jirachi Body Slam in case I can't get it out of the way. And Milotic. It's mostly Milotic, because Milotic is not something you're going to be getting out of the way with this team. And, you know, this way, I mean, Blissey Milotic is going to be annoying, but that's hopefully where, you know, actually no, that's where Zapdos and Regice together will combine. So, yeah. Here we go. This is a good amount of, you know, bulk and that, so we're just gonna give it this old spread. Alright, here we go. We're gonna test this against the big ones. So, I know he's using TSS. I don't know that off the bat though, so I'm gonna baton pass. Alright, this is a good start. You know, if it's most special defensive, Zapdos might just stay in and try to mess with it somehow. God damn it, PS messed up my IVs. But this is not bad because I can just go for a Focus Punch and hit whatever. You know, if Swampert comes in, I don't really have the best switch. That's another thing. Maybe sub was superior. But, you know, you get that HP grass off and all's fine. So this T-Tar set was definitely a right choice, and I feel better about this team already. Just from the options I have, you know. So here's that question again, you know. What's my switch? Since Suicune has to be both sweeper and check to stuff. That's another thing. I just, you know, okay, in fairness, this one is not really Regice's fault. It's just, well, maybe, you know, if I had like a Suicune kind of thing going on, since Zapdoug seems to be the superior special wall bait combination, and, you know, Regice's contribution seems superfluous. I mean, this is the big team style to be good against, but, you know, things like Celebi would be just as fine against, you know, water types. If not better, because of the earthquake resistance for Swampert against offense teams specifically. So I'm just thinking, you know, Regice Doug, you know, just Zap Doug might be the better way with a bulky Doug. And I mean, it's not perfect or ideal, but you know, Gengar alongside it, you know, Calm Miners that can handle Blissey for good measure. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like Regice is really consistently able to get in, because it's this scenario, you know, when T-Tar gets a free turn, and it does, you can't just go gung-ho into Doug. I mean, my Doug does live an unboosted Tar Earthquake, but I think what I gotta do, because if I, see, look, I let T-Tar go here, I go to Suicune after, Blissey comes in, what, do I just go hard into Doug? I mean, I think I might, and that's a pretty risky play, so what I can also do is go to Zapdos, and yep, I like that more. I mean, it's forcing me to make some outside-the-box moves, and, you know, so now I can baton pass, and then what? You know, if it's just a standard Quake Slide T-Tar, you know, I still got to let something go if I don't want Suicune taking a big hit. And the question is, does Suicune need to take that big hit, or does it really matter if it takes that hit? You know, whether it sweeps or not. You know, against Gengar, it very well might make the difference. So, I'm willing to say I want Suicune to not be around. Luckily, I've only revealed 2 Pokemon so far in this specific example, which is not unrealistic, because if this was like a Scarm lead or something, then it would be a similar situation so far. But if it was a T-Tar lead, then look, what am I, hard going to Dugtrio? And that's another thing. I just wish this was like a Swampert or something. It's so hard to fit everything in. And Regice is not, as it is, and Regice isn't contributing enough to make it worthwhile. So I got a Baton Pass. You see, it's a standard Quake Slide T-Tar, but I learned it's not banded, which means I might be able to live a hit. So I'm just gonna HPS. He should Earthquake if he's smart here. And yeah, so what? Do I then give up my ability to KO Blissey by taking this hit? No, I gotta go to Suicune, and then I gotta go right to Dugtrio. I mean, what the shit is this? No, he can't just stay in with T-Tar. That would be nuts. And he's got the direct Blissey thing, so I think this is the right move. Oh, but he made a good move and went to Zapdos. So now it depends on the set. But now Regice at least is coming in. So, I mean, I could always Earthquake as he goes to T-Tar on my Regice. That would be fucking insane. But the likelier move is he goes to Skarmory, because that's also decent against Regice. And, what am I going to... But I also haven't really revealed a good Zapdos switch. So I'm going to have to take my chances. But see, that Skarm was a good move. So now I really gonna... Well, if I Thunderbolt him now, then I guarantee if he goes for Spikes, then he will no longer... Ooh, that was lucky. Yeah, if he went for Spikes, then he would be punished for it, and he would be in Suicune range. So, one layer of Spikes. I guess for the sake of argument, we'll just assume that's what he had. Luckily, I think if this isn't a DD-Tar, I'm definitely faster than it. So that means, and since he knows I have Dugtrio, he's not going to bother DDing. So these teams generally don't have Lum DD-Tar. So I think Regice's use here might be just Ice Beam, bring in a Dug range. Yeah, I mean... And that lets me stay healthy so I can 2-KO Blissey later, and that's, hey, that's not bad. Of course, now it's a matter of, because he's not going to go to Blissey, responding in turn. Maybe I need a different Jirachi set. But, this is not the greatest example. I mean, Regice did something. It wasn't ideal, but I hope this video is illustrating more the cramp it puts on your team building, more so than anything else. Anyway, I have little choice but to go to the Jirachi. I think T-Bolt was a better move there, given how, T-Tar's dead, Regice is dead. What else could possibly be coming in here? Anyway, so this is my sweeper, but, if the last is Gengar, then I really doubt the last is also going to be a sweeper. He can't just go for... This is kind of risky, but he can't just, let me boost up. So I kind of want to go back to Doug, because, he's either going to Roar or he's going to Thunder move. Or Blissey, ideally, is the... Yeah, so Roar, that's fine. That's a fast Zapdos, actually, for such a defensive thing. So I'm going to T-Wave. I think at some point I got to just take the plunge and let something go to the Blissey. So at least now, it's not stopping Suicune. Generally on this kind of team, then you would assume the Zapdos to be calm, defensive. So that's what I was counting on. Yeah, so now I gotta do some magic against Blissey, and for the sake of time, I'm gonna cut this short, actually. So we're gonna call it there, so pretty much this is now a game of... So we saw what Regice did. That was the important part. So, now I let something go to Blissey, I 2-KO it with Doug as it doesn't KO me back, and then I try to beat the last two, Zapdos and Gengar, with Suicune and Jirachi, which should work. Alright, and call it there. So looking at it, I think this team, which I have made some edits to, might be one of the more viable ways to run Regice, because it loses T-Tar's Sand, but it makes up for it kind of with Will-O-Wisp Gengar, who I put Taunt on just because it's not going... This is going to be the method of pressuring Skarmory. If they've got a Pursuit Tar, you live the Pursuit, you kill it with Doug, and then you still have your Gengar, and T-Tar's out of the way, so you have two booms. and Regice no longer has to deal with T-Tar in the way, so I do really like that. I also like the Bold Jirachi to help with not just Arrow, but also non-EQ Lax, and for EQ Lax you can pivot into Gengar to Will-O-Wisp. I still don't love it, but it is something. So the bulky Dugtrio fits in here. And yeah, since you just kill other Dugs locked in the HP bug, and you want to not get 2 KO by Blissey, I mean, it might not be as worth it. But, sorry. Yeah, so you gotta go for... you want the option at least, I think. So, yeah, I'm going for a similar but different matchup here. So, yeah, let's do it. And so, thank God for the backup music or background music. I'm going a little insane here. I had hopes for Regice, but you know it comes with such a set of you know, drawbacks. So, and in the event of lead T-Tar, of course, you can't safely switch out of it. I mean, the physical T-Tar should switch out, but you can't safely switch out of it, is the problem. So you are generally just going to have to take it down with you, which is still fine. You're going to lose Gengar's... oh, well, that worked out. I don't think that's a move you generally make. So at this point, you can go right to Dougie, and so, you know, the Gengar Dugtrio synergy, I like, and I like it because it's like Zapdos Gengar. It allows Regice to, like in the last game, when you get rid of the T-Tar, then Regice has more chances to shine, for sure. I think that Moltres was a mistake. And now it's going to be easier to sweep with Celebi, but same idea generally. So this is now a good switch in since it's burned. Anyway, so DD-Tar is still not ideal, but by wishing to... God, neither is this. Jesus. That was a good move, since I'm not just going to Psychic into T-Tar. So, oh god, I wish I had a Pursuit Tar at this point. Jesus, you can't... Because this is a problem with Suicune too, honestly. You know, you want that sweeping presence, but you can't use it defensively with spikes and sand and whatnot. So, what do I let Jirachi go for nothing? Honestly, maybe. No, I go to Moltres because it can take a hit. Then he made the smart move in Will-O-Wisp. That was very intelligent by him. He's not just going to let it go, so Celebi or Swampert, or T-Tar or Swampert, so Gengar either way, or this either way. This is a major threat. I just Giga Drain because Moltres isn't a threat. Oh, that was fucking stupid of me. I'm sorry. It is 3:10 a.m. That's my excuse. Yeah, that's my official excuse. Anyway, so if he Smarty Whirlwinds... Nope, second spike was bad, but I'll live with it. Anyway, so Suicune's posing a threat here, and I can't kill it with Hydro, but he's not going to T-Tar, he's not going to Moltres, so I can go to Jirachi, nullify the Toxic, and yeah, he just does that. So that's a fast Skarmory, since it's faster than 189, so he's not living this, and he's not in a good place to switch into it without risking getting dugged after. So you know what, if this is what Regice has to do, this is what Regice has to do. I will take this, especially since Doug fortuitously lived that extra spike. Yeah, so we're really seeing the strain that this thing causes in the team builder more so than anything else. So, and you know, not having Zapdos. Look at how good Zapdos would be here. It's already tough enough to fit Zapdos in on your traditional Calm Mind spam teams, and when you got Regice taking up a slot, it's just really difficult. and you're always giving up on something, and I feel like the reward Regice is giving, I don't know, I feel like I'd like some defensive security against the physical guys. You know, I would really like a Swampert of some sort on here, something funky, but at least Suicune is a good choice here, just like on the last team, because it actually threatens to mop things up. So I'm going to sack the useless Doug. Celebi is a big threat at this point. Celebi honestly just kind of sweeps. So, yeah, and it's faster because it's a bulky Gar. So this team definitely works. It's not sound defensively, unfortunately. I can't say that. I mean, it is, but you got to make a lot of concessions. You know, it's a dirty game. It's not a reliable game. So, it's tough to fit things in here, you know, and Regice definitely did its job here, so I think the M-Dragon Calm Mind team is solid, but it's got its place. Don't get me wrong, it definitely has its place. But, you know, it just gets me wondering about if it couldn't be done better. By, say, I don't know, the explosion is definitely nice to... the second explosion is definitely nice to make up for the lack of sand you have in a pinch. And the Will-O-Wisp Guard, you know, great choice. Especially with the Wish Bold Jirachi to help out against physical stuff. I just still feel it's flimsy. And it's mostly an issue with Moltres too, so, you know, just having the Pursuit Tar tool to deal with Will-O-Wisping shit, since it does, you know, Celebi, I'm not saying I've been perfect with the teams at any at this point, but I'm just saying that Regice is adding a lot of issues and not really addressing much that I couldn't already cover. You know, I think that's been illustrated in this game. I mean, sure, it switches into Zapdos. You know, T-Tar, T-Wave Zapdos, Celebi. Generally, you do fine against Zapdos. I mean, Jirachi, didn't even mention Jirachi. Yeah, and I mean, Suicune, same deal, forget about it. So I really gotta just say, I feel like Regice isn't contributing much of anything. And I'm specifically highlighting the TSS matchup because the other ones, you know, Regice is a decent special attacker against most stuff lacking a Blissey. It's fine. Especially offensive stuff, so I don't think it's that important to highlight. So yeah, so we're gonna try one more team, minus Dugtrio, and then we're going to. So I made a standard mixed offense team, and I just slapped Regice where the Snorlax usually would be. So, I mean, it's got some advantages. It's definitely less prone to spikes, or to Skarmory, rather, switching in, than Snorlax would be. And it's got some, I mean, booming on the special wall is especially nice for Mence and Zapdos. And, yeah, I mean, it's tough for Snorlax to get a really relevant boom off unless, you know, Skarm is already being chipped, in which case you're already doing pretty well. So, to help it out against Blissey, I decided to pump Swampert full of attack EV since, between Intimidate and Metagross, I think it'll be fine defensively. So, we're just gonna give it a whirl against Dugtrio and Toxic Protect to really pressure Blissey and Sand without Spikes or Doug. So we'll give it a whirl. So, alright, he's got to switch out here. He's going to Skarm or Pert. Those are the standard safe turn 1 moves. Generally, it is nice to just Dragon Claw because... Well, look. If you Dragon Claw Swampert, he switches out of HP Grass. And if you Dragon Claw Skarmory, then he still lives Fire Blast. So the reward for HP Grassing turn 1 is T-Tar immediately wins, or nearly immediately. Big problem with these teams is Dugtrio, which I asked him to bring. See if Regice makes any sort of difference against them. And yeah, so Skarmory is big. So if you Fire Blast Swampert, then he pivots into Skarmory, threatens U-turn or Toxic. Sorry. So the bigger reward is definitely hitting Swampert. So Skarmory, that's all the best. And you could argue that point for ages. But if I Fire Blast the Skarm, if I get him to stay in here, then he can no longer switch into my Metagross safely later, and it's better for Regice too. And not to mention, then Metagross can blow up on Swampert, and then T-Tar will look really good because Skarmory can't phase it as well. So, bigger picture stuff. Zapdos, ooh, that blows. Alright, Regice, finally, some use, some early game use. Let's see you do your thing. So, Toxic, alright, that's not bad, but I'm going to throw out a T-Wave because I don't know he has Dugtrio. So if he shows a Blissey, he's either lacking Gengar or Dugtrio. And, you know, lacking Gengar means Fortress gets kind of lame. So, but not that it can't still work, but Thunder Waving... Thunder Wave and him not going to Blissey generally means... well, I want to punish the T-Tar somehow. Am I really punishing the T-Tar by T-Waving it? I think a better move might be to switch here, but he also might have Protect. So Ice Beam is the safe move. Chunk that T-Tar if it does come in. So that's roughly... Alright, so we see a bulky T-Tar. So what's our move here? Metagross... Is there a way to cover Rock Slide? Oh man, Regice's weaknesses are so exploitable. It makes it tough because T-Tar could feasibly Earthquake here, it could feasibly Rock Slide, it could feasibly go to Skarmory, and it's tough to cover. And I mean, I suppose the same could be said for Snorlax, admittedly. So Snorlax, however, would not have gotten hit by that Toxic, but it would also have encouraged Skarmory to come in more clearly. So you could have abused that. So I'm still saying I probably might prefer Lax in that situation. Though, if he double switch to Skarmory, then Regice would be able to hurt it more one-on-one. So I'm going to say this is roughly separate but equal. Though, I mean, the Toxic immunity in the long run is it's nasty. So I gotta say, I'm leaning slightly toward Lax here. Anyway, my team doesn't... On these mixed offenses, T-Tar being down is... Okay, yeah, I've decided now. T-Tar being down isn't valuable enough. I mean, who really cares? Zapdos, sure, that is nice. But if there's a Blissey, that's not... It hasn't done enough. You know, even if I had Superpower Regice, that awful set, because it's so weak. Do the calcs against T-Tar, you'll be mortified. Or Focus Punch or something, then I'm really not doing anything to Metagross and Jirachi, and then I'm just really bad overall. So, you know, not a good fix. Snorlax is hurting Skarm and T-Tar with Focus Punch really, really hard. So he can do things. Even like Fire Blast, Earthquake would be fine. So, with a Pursuit Tar, maybe. Yeah, man, I just really showing its issues here. So... the Zapdos, maybe nailing the Zapdos would be okay with Metagross too, so I'm willing to let it take an Earthquake, but get that in. So here's another problem. He's got Skarm, Zap. I'm already on so much of a timer with Regice being toxic, especially because look, T-Tar can switch in so many more times. I already hate this. So I mean, I've got to, you know, play my absolute ass off just to stay in the picture here. So what I'm going to try to do is, you know, probably not going to Zapdos and just taking a hit for no reason. He wants to scout my set out, so I'm going to go to Zapdos on Skarm or Pert, and now I can suss out if he's got that Blissey or not. So he's, you know, because if he doesn't have a Blissey, it's very possible he doesn't have a very good switch in at all. Like if it's Swampert, Gengar, Dugtrio, which is very feasible, it's a great team other than opposing Zapdos. Celebi, okay, Celebi, that's completely valid. God, I wish I had a Dugtrio right now. God, I wish my Regice wasn't on such a timer. Oh man. Yeah, in conclusion, I gotta... You know, that T-Mobile pair was disgusting. He should have the Leech Seed on me. But, yeah, I'm just gonna pretend like it never happened. So, and he's got a Zapdos to wall my Mixmen, so this matchup is not great. And T-Tar's not getting where because Swampert, and I think it's Asta's team, so Doug, and so I've got a, you know, he's got the Zapdos coming in here. I got to go to T-Tar, so now he's going to Skarmory or Swampert, and what the hell am I going to? I mean, if I go to Mence, I just get in this loop again. So And Regice is not helping me, whereas Snorlax would actually help me. So I gotta conclude, Regice sucks on these teams. Alright, so that was that analysis. I hope that was thorough. But yeah, I mean, look, even if that's a Blissey, that helps a little, but it's still just too messy, because I know there's the Dugtrio there waiting to pick everything off, and Regice just can't hurt even T-Tar, can't get past T-Tar. You know, Snorlax would definitely cause some real havoc here, whereas Regice just gets stopped too easily unless it makes concessions with its movesets that make it bad against other stuff, and at that point, it's really like, why bother? So in conclusion, don't use Regice here. So yeah, we're gonna wrap this up in the team builder. So, in conclusion, I gotta say, I didn't have expectations going into this video, but I'm kind of swayed. Regice definitely can perform decently, but it's hindered by so much. So on mixed offense, it's just completely outdone by Snorlax. That toxic immunity is so big, as well as the ability to reliably hurt T-Tar and just muscle through things with a lot more ease. And on the Calm Mind stuff, the dedicated Calm Mind stuff, yeah, it definitely has its place, but the weaknesses it brings, I mean, even the Moltres weakness, it's just awful. And I mean, part of that is exacerbated by the abusers not being able to switch into so much of the same stuff as Regice, thus kind of proving the point. You know, you gotta spread out the you can't cram so many of those weaknesses together. It makes it really difficult to pull off. It makes for tough games, tough uphill games, and that's really the best summary of how I felt using Regice here. It's just uphill. It does not do enough. It's nice for sure, you know, if it got in. It would be a nice Pokemon to have if it didn't come with so much awful baggage. And thus, I really can't say, I mean, look, you are totally free to disagree with me. Triangles in particular, I'm sure he has a lot to say. However, I just can't endorse the use of Regice right now. I mean, sure, it can definitely be annoying alongside Dugtrio. It's just building a solid team with Regice is really difficult. If you're willing to concede against a big weakness against things like Doug and whatever else, and sure, I think the best team with Regice would be one that probably the one I stumbled on earlier with Zap, Regice, Doug, T-Tar, Pert, and Jirachi. You're gonna hate the shit out of Dugtrio there. You really are. But at least you've got a lot of Doug-focused offense going there, and Regice gives you a backbone to fall on against really just other Zapdos. That's it. I forgot. Celebi is better there. It's just, yeah. I just don't think Regice is good enough at doing what it is supposed to be. So, you know what? I support Regice for BL. That is my scientific conclusion at the end of this video. So, let me know what you guys think. I'm interested. You know, if I welcome other opinions. If there's something I'm missing with Regice, I know Triangle's got some use out of it. I just can't help but feel like you could be doing better than Regice in some way, shape, or form. It's just those weaknesses. I mean, like when Zapdos can just Toxic and you can't get rid of it, and that was a great example because sure, you can Toxic, and sure, we weren't concerned about Zapdos, but you know, then the Toxic is worse than the Thunderbolt somehow because you just don't have enough time to break past the T-Tar, and that's why you want Dugtrio, and Dugtrio is great, but that's, you know, first of all, you can't even KO healthy T-Tar unless you're, when KOing T-Tar becomes so much of a necessity, then it's even tougher because you can't fit spikes, and you can't, you know, just chip it, and I mean, it's a lot, it takes a lot of turns to chip something into range for a KO. You know, for a KO you can only get by predicting really hard. And for a team that's supposed to, you know, have fluid offense, so it's not consistent. And I mean, look, I'm sure there's going to be a game next SPL where someone brings Regice and it's just the MVP. I can see that happening, but it's not going to be with any consistency against TSS. Sure, Regice against offense, I have no doubt about it. You know, when the opposing team is vulnerable to T-Wave and the strong stab Bolt Beam, and you can leave a mark. But even then, I mean, honestly, Metagross, Unless you're really abusing the other guy with Dugtrio, and at that point, is it Regice or is it Dugtrio? You know, like, sure, Regice lets you get dug in, but you would probably be better off using a better Pokemon like Celebi. Then just use the Celebi. It'll do similar things. You'll lose the explosion. You'll gain a much better Pokemon overall. I don't know. That's not a definitive statement. You know, ditch Regice, use Celebi instead. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying it's an example of how Regice's weaknesses really drag a team down. Especially because it's not about having counters to the Pokemon that Regice is weak to. It's about the fact that it invites them in so easily. It invites the Pokemon using those moves so easily, so many times, over and over. When you even bring it in, it's like, this is a liability. This is not a Pokemon that's consistently putting in work. You know, those teams they can take a hit for sure. They've got a backbone, but they're not meant to do it over and over and over with such big hits. And Regice just invites those too easily. You know, because, you know, Metagross comes in, blows up your Swampert, and you're not abusing it enough. That's why I much prefer Gengar. You know, that ground immunity is really helpful. The ability to actually check Salamence. Regice can't check Salamence because it's also supposed to be checking, you know, other stuff. Like all the, I don't know. I mean, at full health, yes, Regice, if you run a bulky Regice, but then you have those same problems like being stuffed by goddamn Swampert. And if you're using special attackers, then who cares if you manage to weaken the Swampert? You know, they blow by Swampert. You are not accomplishing your offense. So I think at this point I've said what I wanted to say regarding Regice. Just it's too difficult to make work consistently, I think. The holes it brings to teams are enormous. So, you know what? We could totally see Regice rise up in the future. I don't doubt that. But for now and for the foreseeable future, I gotta say I'm supporting Regice to BL. So I might just bring it up with the council. So thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you thought about Regice, and I'll catch you next time.